Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the show. So, I'm really excited about my guest today, Jonathan Lee, who is currently the growth consultant for Keller Williams in Malaysia and also the CEO of Reapfield Properties Group as well, one of the leading property groups in Asia and Malaysia as well. So, Jonathan is a traveling man and he has been on the road the past couple of weeks. So, it's really exciting to be able to get him on the show to speak a little bit about his experience in leading a multinational company in one of the largest growing real estate markets in the world, as well as his experience both as a real estate agent and transitioning into a leader of other real estate agents as well. So, Jonathan, man, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for spending a little bit of time with us here today.
Yeah, hey, hi guys. Thank you so much. Just to clarify, I was formerly the CEO. I left that role 2 years ago. So now I'm on the growth consultant role for Keller Williams Worldwide for Asia Pacific. So that's why I do. But I'm based in Malaysia though. So yeah.
Absolutely, man. So definitely always moving up and evolving when it comes to your role and when it comes to what it is that you're trying to do in the real estate space as well. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? Right, you've done quite a bit, and we've talked a little bit offline as well on some of the things that you've done in real estate. So we'd love for you to share a little bit about your background, so that way our audience knows who's talking to them and where your credibility comes from.
Yeah, thank you so much. So my background is really interesting because 21 years ago I was in real estate, and before real estate, I actually studied music, which is not the regular pathway of any real estate broker or real estate agent, right? But I enjoy music, I enjoy arts, and I enjoy understanding about people. Because part of music, it's about really music is actually a form of communication about one's emotions and thoughts about things that is transcribed into music. And I think with that background, helped me understand that people is really important. How you connect and how you communicate and how you understand people helps us to be positioning ourselves to be a place of success. So the past 21 years, I had done many roles in real estate. Of course, as a real estate agent, I did fairly well. Somewhere in 2007 or 8, I read this book called The Million Dollar Real Estate Agent, written by Gary Keller, and helped and I use some of those thoughts and models to kind of scale my business. And then eventually, I ran a small brokerage with about 40, 50 people. Got bought over by a bigger company called Reapfield. Back then was a leading company in Malaysia. Bought over my business, and then I got injected into, became the CEO of that particular company for 7 years. And then we went into a franchise system with Keller Williams in 2019. After 5 years of doing that, I stepped away from that role because I felt that it was time for me to look at something else. And situation then requires me to potentially reposition myself, and I got this opportunity to work with Keller Williams Worldwide, to kind of help with the journey of growing and also helping the other regions in Asia Pacific to kind of adopt systems and structure, because in the real estate arena in Southeast Asia and Asia Pacific, it's kind of very different, but not too different, right? So the goal is, how can we make that localized systems and models for agents and brokerage to succeed, right, at a high level.
Yeah, so that's quite unique, and I think we'll dig on to into your decision to go into that role a little bit later on the show as well, because I'm really curious on kind of what you're seeing across different countries in Southeast Asia and the just overall in Asia in general as well, because it's just a fast-growing continent when it comes to the economy and of course the real estate being both developed and of course sold as well and transacted. So you mentioned a little bit earlier on that you had a background in music, and that really kind of taught you a little bit about people and how you're able to essentially connect with other people. So was that something that you kind of consciously made the shift when you went into real estate as an agent as well, that you kind of took a little bit of that and applied it to your business?
I think it came naturally to me. I wasn't very aware of it until much later, in about maybe about 2 to 3 years after my involvement in real estate, right? Then I begin to realize, oh, I could understand people better, because I kind of sit down and listen and pause and to try to read people better, right? Try to understand the meaning behind those words and those emotions or non-verbal communication, right? So I think that's something that has developed as my strength. And because predisposed, I was very in tune with myself and my emotions because of I'm trying to understand music, right? And in music, we try to understand what's the message and story about the composition, right? Because I study classical music, which is more complex compared to popular music, right? So that helps me to understand and analyze things a little bit deeper. And I think that was to my advantage. And I realized that I had this advantage maybe 2 to 3 years after I was in the business.
Yeah, so that's quite unique. You mentioned that you were able to kind of get a better sense of people's emotions as well, because I think when it comes to real estate or sales in general, communication is very important, right? But a lot of people don't understand is communication is not always verbal, right? And you mentioned you study classical music, and then just, correct me if I'm wrong, but to my understanding, a lot of classical music don't have lyrics, right? They don't have words. It's just kind of the sound being created as well. So that's constitute, I guess, another version of nonverbal communication that is applied to your
Right.
day-to-day, to your day-to-day transacting as well.
Right. And there are a lot of nuances there, right? And I think the same as life and business, there's so much nuances that sometimes we don't understand how do we track those nuances. How do we determine what is noise and feedback, right? That's a big line there, right? How do you understand whether is this a noise, is this noise, or is this feedback, right? So I think those nuances are things that makes a difference. And sometimes it's not something that is very distinct. But yet, if you understand how to navigate through those nuances, I think you have an advantage against other realtors or other real estate people in your market.
Right, exactly. Being able to understand what's actually important and what is just something that's kind of being put out there, right? Because there's, like you mentioned, there's a lot of noise everywhere, right? In every industry, especially in the real estate industry. But what's actually the important things that we need to be able to communicate both to clients and also to ourselves as well. So I'd love for, maybe for you to share a little bit about kind of your experience as you're, beginning your real estate career in your first 2 to 3 years as an independent agent. What was that experience like? I know if people are listening to this around the world, there's different
Sure.
nuances when it comes to how real estate is done in each specific market, but there's a lot of similarities as well. So what was it like in your first couple of years? What did you kind of learn as far as the lessons to propel yourself to success in a new career?
Right. So I entered the market in the year 2004. So that's 21 years ago. Um, yeah, so now you know that my age is 25. So I started when I was 4 years old. That's a joke anyway. Anyway, yeah, but back then in our market, real estate profession wasn't the most highly respected profession. And it was full of people at that point in time. Either they couldn't find anything to do in their jobs, or they're not able to sustain themselves in their jobs, and all kinds of people trying to enter the market. And back then, our market had a lot of supply issue. Means we have lack of supply. The demand was more than the supply. So basically, anything that's available in the market, it will be sold, right? So you just need to get the listing, post it up on your marketing or advertisements. You get an appointment and it's sold. So that's the standard back then. And people who were real estate agents back then didn't have clarity of how to create value and add value. The only value they had is I open the door, you take a look at the property. And I quickly understood that, and I realized that, hey, there's an opportunity here to be outstanding. There's an opportunity here to be different by creating more value. And I think that was the starting point. And I think it's still the key factor that determines a good real estate agent and not so good real estate agent is the desire, the intention to create value for the people that you're wanting to serve, irregardless of market condition, right? So that was my first realization. If I could just do a little bit more, if I just do things that people are not willing to do, and if I would just help them understand better, I can stand out, right? And it's not that I'm smart or whatever, but I'm trying to understand how to help people. I think it came from that background. And I think I'm still holding that belief and that principle in the way I run my business and the way I do what I'm doing right now is how can I help? How can I come from contribution? I think that was something that was a big aha for me after 6, 7 months, 8 months in the business. Like, hey, nobody really cares about anyone. Most people just want to do transactions. And that was the opportunity. And if you could just care and do a little bit more and create value for people, you suddenly become outstanding. Right? Yeah. So that was one of my realization. The second realization I had is there are a lot of people in my market back then, they thought that this is a flexible business. In reality, they have no idea that this is not flexible. I mean, a full-time job is flexible because you plan 9 to 5. This is not flexible at all, man. Like if you have flexible time, you have flexible income, right?
Mhm.
So that's the reality, right? So the two things that I realized back then, that this is not flexible, man. This is hard work, and you work more, but the output that the input that you put in will give you a better output if you really work hard and do it correctly. So those are the two key things that I learned at the early stage of my career.
Yeah, that's so important, right? Because I think, for a lot of these emerging markets out there where there is a lot of demand and supply is trying to kind of keep up, it creates a unique market out there for real estate agents because you as a broker, as an intermediary, what you're doing is, as long as there's, demand for what you're trying to sell, right? You're
Correct.
able to earn a commission on it, but that's not going to last forever. We've seen this across the world, right? In different markets, the market's always going to cycle up and down there. And there's a lot of agents in these markets who haven't experienced yet a bad market, right? When there's
That's
not a lot of demand going up as well. So the idea that you had, which is, coming from a point of contribution, coming point from a point of how can I provide value, that's
right.
going to be a sustainable mindset and a business model
That's right.
regardless of what market conditions, like you said, good or bad,
Correct.
right? Buyer's market or seller's market, because you are able to provide value to people regardless of what it is that they're looking for. And then the second piece of that too, as well, which is you mentioned that you have, this is a business where you are 100% responsible for your own income. And that's more of an internal realization, right? Of how you're running your business, how you're controlling your time. And for a lot of agents, that's the biggest struggle they have in the beginning is managing their time. So I think those are two very important points, especially I think the second one for agents coming in. They have the right mindset, but they also have to be able to have the work ethic in order to, actually propel themselves to be successful in
That's
this
right.
business.
That's right. Absolutely, yes. And I think that's the key thing that everyone, and I used to tell my company when we do marketing for recruitment, never put that statement out that this is a flexible industry, or this is a flexible job or flexible opportunity. It's not flexible at all. There are some flexibility, but it's not flexible. You can't wake up tomorrow and say, I don't want to work today. It doesn't work that way.
I guess you can, but you're not going to earn any money, right?
Right. You can choose to block time for your vacation, but that's fine. You have that flexibility to do that. But you better wake up and open shop 9 to 5 or 9 to 8, whatever the time that you spend on a daily basis, because that's how the consumer sees you on a daily basis.
Yeah,
Right.
and sometimes even more than that, right? As in this business, right? You're gonna have to answer calls late at night, early in the morning because
Correct.
transaction
Correct.
goals, things come up.
Correct. 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 That's right.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's very important as well to kind of get your take on the transition, right? Because you were an individual agent, you were, almost kind of a little bit ahead of your time, right? Being able to provide value and also kind of treat this as a business in an emerging market. So what was it that made you go ahead and kind of start your own company, run your own brokerage of about 40 to 50 agents?
Right. So I think it came to a point that I was, because of the models that I learned from the $1 million real estate agent, I was able to scale my business. And on an average, I was doing, on my peak time, this is probably between 2008, 2009, the peak of my sales agent career, I was hitting around 16 transactions a month.
Wow.
Um, for my country is considered good, right? But one thing I realized that as we change our age, or as we change our seasons of life, and as we do these things in the high intensity, you will come to a point of realization, is this something that you would like to do and want to do for the rest of your life?
Mhm.
So I came to that point and came to understand that, no, I don't think like I want to do this for the rest of my life. I remember I was traveling on a holiday with my wife. We went on the islands, beautiful islands for 4 nights. But I wasn't there. I was on the phone. I mean, I did 3 transactions, huge transactions. But the whole 80% of the time, I was just on my phone talking and trying to close the transaction, right? So I asked myself, is this the kind of life that I want? And I think it's a choice. It's not about good or bad. Maybe I'm very poor at managing my time, or I was very poor at having leverage to take care of those things for me back then. But those experiences help me understand that, is there a better way to build a business where I don't have to do this for the rest of my life? I just want more time back. And I think that I came to that point. I decided I need to make a decision here. That's the first reason. The second reason is I felt that I was more passionate about people. I was more passionate about helping others. And if I could do that and still make the same amount of money, or more money, why not? Like, why can't I find a pathway to do that? Is there something possible? So I think I came into that journey with these two key thoughts, right? Back at that season in my life. This is probably after 6, 7 years of running my real estate sales business, with a couple of admins and maybe two showing assistants. That was what I was doing. And it was pretty successful.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, 16 transactions a month. I think that's a very, very high number, regardless of what market you're in, right? I don't think there's any agents even here in the US at this moment who is doing anywhere close to that, right? If they are, then they're definitely one of the top, 0.1% of agents in their entire market, as well. So making that transition, right? Being a very high level sales agent, going into a position of leadership where you're owning your own company, I do see it, across the board, a lot of people struggle with that as well. Is that something that you struggled with too, or did you kind
Yeah,
of make
yeah,
that
yeah.
transition a little bit more naturally?
The first struggle was, I remember my wife telling me, why are we making lesser money right now? Right? And that's the reality. But you've got to understand what it looks like. And I think most people think that this is the natural progression. To me, it's not a natural progression. It's an intentional progression, right? It's not natural. It's because we think that the next step up is I run my own business and I recruit a bunch of agents and my own brokerage, right? Because I think the brokerage business and being a real estate sales business is a two different thing, at totally different business. And sometimes we come into that transition and bringing our mindset of a salesperson into the brokerage business. And that's the problem, like the transition. And I see a lot of my friends, my peers, they didn't make that transition well because it took a lot of self-awareness and a lot of times to just pause and think through what you want to become, right? And I think that struggle will happen. I think the first initial 2 years was a huge struggle, income-wise versus what I'm supposed to do, what I'm doing, and all that, right? Try to have a big picture of what's really a brokerage business. And it's a total different business from running a real estate sales business. I don't think the brokerage business is for everyone. I really don't think so. It's for that few who really think that people is very important to them and they want to spend the rest of their life impacting people. Maybe the brokerage business is something that you want to consider. Because if you just want to make a lot of transaction and impact people through the transaction as well, then that's that. But you got to understand what it takes to be here versus here. And I don't think which one is better or greater, is just different.
Yeah, I'm really glad you mentioned that because it is two completely different businesses. And for a lot of agents who are maybe successful in being an individual sales agent, they don't necessarily see that, right? They do think it's a natural progression that, hey, if I'm going to be really good at sales, I can be a really great leader and run my own brokerage. But
Right.
I mean,
That's
I've
right.
seen it over and over again. That's not the case. And they come and they go back to selling houses, selling real estate after an unsuccessful stint at running their own brokerage.
Right, that's right, and that's the reality. And I think it's as I travel around Asia, I think that is a prevalent thing that just happened. What you just said, right? They think it's a natural progression, but actually, it's not a natural progression. It's just because people don't have another methodology or another model to go up and scale up the ladder. Because everyone wants progress. So the immediate thought of progress is this new thing that I'm doing, but they don't understand that this is a new startup. You're going to behave like from scratch. So you can say you are progressing in terms of leadership, but running that business, it may not be progress for people, right? So that's the key to understand. And that's the trap. I think that's a huge trap. And people want that reputation, want that leadership role, and want that title, but they don't realize that it really it really really takes a lot of them in order to run that business and hold that title.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It actually requires, like you said, because it's two different businesses, it requires another set of skills for you to be able to learn and unlearn and relearn,
That's right.
as well. So I think for, to really kind of get your take on this is for somebody who is maybe in that position right now, who is doing quite well in their sales business individually and are considering, should I go out there and start my own brokerage? Should I go out there and start my own team that maybe hasn't gone through the same realization process that you did, right? Where you're thinking about reflecting on the rest of your life and what it is that you want to do. What are some things that you would say this individual should be thinking of? What are some skills that you can tell this person that if you do make that transition, these are going to be the skills that you don't yet have that you're going to have to develop so that way they can make a decision as whether or not they should take that role or should continue just focusing on their sales business later on.
Right. I think before they go into brokerage, the team the team the concept of team is probably the first starting point.
Mhm.
I think teams is where you understand how to lead people, right? And I think leadership and management, it's a skill set that we need to juggle between. And I always argue a good leader is a poor manager, a good manager is a poor leader. Try to understand that concept, right? And leadership is something that you have to journey through and you have to learn and you have to be mentored. Because I think it's hard to lead others when you are not being led.
Mhm.
That you need to have a role model, right? You can't coach others if you're not being coached, right? So I think the first thing is find a mentor. Go find someone that is successful in leading something, a team, either a business or market center or office, right? Go find someone that's willing to coach you and help you, and you model after that person. Because leadership, it's really by example. The way you want to build your leadership understanding is you need to understand what kind of leader that you want to become and look at role models in the market, in the industry, or of the industry of a certain standard, and you want to follow that. I think that's the first step. Who is that mentor? Who is that role model that you want to follow? That's important, right? So I think that's the first thing. Go find a role model because leadership cannot be just developed by ourselves. It's hard. It's it's really hard, right? So we need to be held accountable by someone to help us hold other people accountable, right? So the way I define leadership is how I'm being taught about leadership is the ability or the intention to help people to learn how to think
Mhm.
so that they can get what they want when they want. So you pause that, right? And you just simplify that. That's really leadership. You got to help them how to think, right? So that when they know how to think, they'll get what they want. So the idea is, how are you helping your people to learn how to think, right? I think that's the key thing about leadership, right? And it is really not simple, but it's not easy, but simple, but it's not easy,
Yeah,
right?
it's absolutely not easy.
That makes sense. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
makes perfect sense. I think, and this is the first time I've ever heard anybody describe leadership as the ability to help other people, give them the ability to think, right? I didn't say it quite as well as you did. I didn't articulate it quite as well as you did, but that's the first time I've heard leadership described that way, and I think that is very accurate of reflection of what leadership is because you are not now able to go in and do things for them, right? That's
That's,
not leadership. That's the
that's right.
opposite of leadership.
That's right. That's manager. So the minute you decide to tell them what to do and check on them all the time and make sure that they're doing what you say they are supposed to do, then it becomes you become a manager, right? Now, in certain things you have to manage, but in general, the first role is lead them, right? Help them to lead them so they can lead themselves. So I think the leadership key thing is important. So a lot of times we go in there and we try to help people to become us when it's not possible, right? But the goal is, how can I set a goal, set a standard, right? Hold you accountable to the standard, and you figure out how to get there. I will help you, but I cannot absolutely want you to become like me because that's just not possible. That makes sense. A lot of times we fall into that trap, right? I think I can do it this way. This is my way. It works. Now it works for you or me, but it may not work for that person. So the goal is not to get that methodology in, is to get, how can we achieve this goal together, right? How can we set this standard, hit that standard, and I hold you accountable. Now you decide what is it that we have within our parameters of values and beliefs that we will work within this parameters of value and beliefs to achieve that goal. Now you've got to come up with the action plan. I will support you on that. So that's really leadership, right? You're helping them to grow, to think through what they really want to achieve.
Yeah, exactly. That's I think the most difficult part of mastering leadership is you are now not going to have to go out there and do everything on your own, right? Whereas in sales, and that's the biggest difference, I think, between leadership and sales, because in sales, you have full control over your actions, right? We always talk about taking full control of our responsibility, our time, right? We talked about it a little bit earlier. Now, leadership is kind of, you're stepping literally away from that and you're leading other people. You're basically showing them and helping them take responsibility, personal initiative for their business. You can't take personal initiative for somebody else. They have to come up with a game plan, stay accountable. You're there with them. But I think that's the hardest part of mastering leadership is because you have to know when to press on the gas a little bit and you have to also know when to pull back a little bit so that the other person can think for themselves and be successful with or without you.
And here's the thing, right? One of the most important success secret for a leader is that you got to find the right person that will fit the role, that will fit the vision, that will fit the style or the fit whatever that you have set in place, so that he or she will be in alignment with you. I think a lot of times we think we can change everyone's mindset behavior. That's hard. Like their parents fail, their spouses fail, their siblings fail, their close friends fail. What makes you think that I can succeed, right? Logically speaking, right? So the idea is to find the right key empire builders in your business. And I call it empire builders because you gotta think of it that way, right? That one day they could operate without you being there. That's the goal. Now, you may not have understood how to do it well yet, but the mindset is that you begin with the end in mind, right? I want to build a group of people that could run this business without me being there. Now, how does that look like? Who do they look like? Now, likely they're going to be smarter than me, or at least smart. Because if I hire a person to run this role, that plays this role, he or she must be better than me in this role because I want her to tell me what she's going to do or he's going to do. Because if I were to tell him what to do, then that's not helping me, right? It's not full leverage. So I think thinking about it that way to when you build your team, it's important.
Yeah, that's a fantastic term, full leverage, right? Because if you're there telling people what to do and you have to constantly do it, it creates a pattern, right? It creates a pattern of feedback where they're going to keep coming back to you if they don't know what to do, and you can never step out of your role, right? And that's
That's
not
right.
the point, right? The point is so that one day you can step out and everybody there who you put into the right positions can
Right.
operate without you being there as well. So that's very important. As leadership actually starts with, finding the right people that can be led, right? Which is
That's right.
so unique as well.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely right. And the trap that we always fall into is we try to fix it ourselves. We try to fix the task. We try to fix those people. It's not about fixing. It's about helping them self-aware. Is this the right opportunity for you? You're going to help them self-discover and self-select to opt in or opt out. The minute you come to me and tell me all your problems and you have no solution for me, you are telling me you're likely to opt out.
Yeah.
Now you can come to me with your problems, which all of us have issues and challenges, but you come in with suggestions and solutions and thoughts, or you can tell me, John, that's a stupid idea. I don't think we should be doing that because this is not helping us achieve our goal, but this is helping us achieve our goals. Maybe to change our activity to this. Now that's the people that I want to hire. Because I want them to challenge me. I want them to challenge whatever we are doing so that we can have progress. Because the best ideas win, not the best egos, right? The best ideas win. So I think that is the journey of I think that's the kind of relevant leadership that's required to scale businesses to a big business.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to take feedback from other people as well. And that's true
Right.
initiative, right? If somebody's willing to challenge your ideas, that's how we improve and that's how we get better. And that's how we get the collective feedback of everyone within a team or group as well. So kind of
Absolutely.
just, wrapping this a little bit as well, just going into kind of one of the last things I really want to talk with you about, which is you now stepping into the role of kind of leading the growth of all of Asia Pacific for a
Right.
multinational company. So you mentioned a little bit about your mindset going into, start in the beginning of the show, going into that role. I would love for you to be able to elaborate that a little bit. So what was it really that kind of prompted you or motivated you to step into this role? And what do you see as far as kind of both the differences in each individual market and the overall similarities of kind of the real estate market in all the major countries, major players in Asia?
So there's two questions here. The first question is what motivated me to step in this role? I think I was in a season where I felt that it's time for me to change and to move on. And I think me playing my role in the company may not be the best option for the company at that season in time. So that's really what motivated me. And the opportunity came as a surprise because I never expected. My goal was to just take a break and rest and figure out what to do later, right? But I didn't realize that this opportunity was there and I took it. So I was motivated by something new and something exciting. And it is a total different experience because over here you're really holding the P&L at your shoulders. You're really holding the payroll, everyone. All the burden is on me. But now I move on to this role, and I'm now analyzing other people's burdens and helping them to really come to some realization about what burden should they keep and what burden should they let go, right? So it's a different perspective. And I like this season in my life is because I think I get to spend more time with my family. I can achieve the same financial goals as I can, maybe even better. At the same time, I get to explore and learn because I am a very learning-based person. I like to learn. And so this is an opportunity for me to interview people, to go different countries and study the models and study the market and study how the whole real estate landscape is. And it's fascinating because you can see a lot of fascinating stuff, which I never thought I would experience, right? So there were a lot of learning journeys that I have during this couple of years as I'm in my role. Now, that's the first question. I hope that answers the first question. Now, the second question, what's the difference? So there are some factors that are different, and there are some similarities in how people think. Now, let me talk about factors. I think government policies are very different across all countries. So let's just bring Southeast Asia as a whole. I think Southeast Asia is about 10 countries. All of them have the same goal of growth, but all of them take different pathways. Some are more organized, some are highly disorganized. Some are regulated, some are highly not regulated, right? There are places where I go to where you could be holding multiple name cards from different brokerages and decide where to park your transaction at any point in time, depending on which one pays you better. I mean, I'm not kidding you. That's the Wild Wild West, man. I mean, you are going there. It's really the Wild Wild West. And you have markets that's at that extreme, right? And you've got markets in the extreme where regulations sometimes don't really make sense. Like you can be a real estate broker without owning a brokerage. You can transaction without being part of a brokerage with no liability at all, no liability, no responsibility for liability at all. So like you have huge spectrum of policies, right, that kind of shape certain practices. And one prevailing thing that I realized in the Asia market, a lot of, with the exception of a few countries, that most of them who are regulating the country don't understand the real estate business very well. They don't understand. And what I say, in fact, I was in a podcast last week with another person in Philippines, and I was recording a podcast. And one of the things that I can say for this whole region is there's a huge leadership crisis in the industry. Like that's a huge leadership crisis in the industry. A lot of people are not clear. There are a lot of ambiguity of what they should and should not do, what they should focus and not focus on. And that's the huge leadership crisis that I am seeing right now. But in some countries, they are slowly forming some shapes of trying to want to organize things better. So the opportunity now is this. If you go into a disorganized market and you're trying to help them organize it, you will become market leader. You have an opportunity to become a market leader because you are setting the standards. You are setting certain behaviors. You're setting certain systems models in place that people can follow. And the only reason why some of these markets are highly disorganized because they don't have a model to follow, right? They don't have a leadership model to follow. Everyone progressed from being a great salesperson to try to be a business leader and try to be the industry leader, where they realize that if I want to run a successful business with a lot of people and a lot of responsibilities, likely I can't run and be leadership of associations or the community leadership, right? That kind of brings that value to the industry. And that's where we are at right now, I believe. And that's where the opportunity is, right? I think it's just a life cycle that's different compared to the US. I think the US has a lot of time to develop that life cycle, whereas in Asia, it's kind of fast. It's kind of fast track, right? So a lot of hardware is ready, but the software is not complete. If that makes sense. You're running a very powerful hardware right now, but your software is still a little bit behind time. If that makes sense, yeah.
It does actually. So I'm assuming it's like for other people who may not understand this, right? So it's more of a mindset thing, right? Like there's a lot of transactions going on. You see it in these Asian countries if you pay attention to the news or just what's going on, right? There's a lot of buildings going up, right? A lot of developers are just going. It seems like going crazy in some of these markets. But the mindset of both, I guess, the individual consumer and also the real estate agents, most importantly, has not necessarily kept up with the pace of growth in a lot of
That's
these
right.
markets. And just want
That's
to
right.
make sure we clarify something. When you talk about the lack of leadership, you're talking about in regulatory positions, right? Not necessarily in the market.
I think the market as well. I think understand, for example, a lot of people don't understand, in my opinion, again, this is my opinion, a lot of people don't understand what it takes to run a brokerage,
Yeah.
right? They don't understand that. So that's a leadership crisis. They are very good at selling real estate, but when you talk about running a brokerage, which is a total different business, they don't understand this. Now they know it's different, but how do I run a brokerage that's successful, that is more profitable than running a sales business? Now, it may not be as profitable as a sales business. So that's something that you got to make peace with, right? It possibly, potentially, from a financial numbers, it may not be there, right? So maybe both have to coexist at the same time. So having that kind of understanding and that kind of clarity, I think that's lacking. That's really lacking.
Got it. So there's a lot of I guess almost going back to what we were just talking about with the transition into owning your own brokerage, right? Because that people have not made that mindset shift, they have not learned
Right, right,
what it takes, right? There's just not kind of some clear leaders in these markets to
right.
really set the example of this is what we need to do. This is kind of the framework of how to run a successful company, a successful brokerage company as well. And that's why
Right.
there's all these different types of regulations going on here and there as well.
That's right.
And then really just kind of to wrap this up, and you can, share as much as you want or as little as you want on this, but when you guys are going into these markets and kind of helping them establish new standards, right? Whether if it's by themselves or, through a company, they're setting up as well. What are you guys doing? How are you guys convincing a lot of these brokers or even individual agents to adopt a new model that sometimes they
Right.
might see as, okay, well, this is not benefiting me, so I'm just not going to do it.
Exactly, exactly. So that's a good question. So the goal is not to change people, is to find people that wants to change,
Mm.
right? The reason why we are stuck in our business sometimes, I like to say it was Gary Keller coaches is this on this. The reason why we are stuck in our business is because we are missing a relationship. So the goal is to find talent and find key people that sees this issue as us, as the way we are seeing it, or as close as we can, and want to make a change and impact. Because you got to think like a pioneer. So you got to find someone that's willing to be a pioneer of a new set of model and system. And it's about solving problems, right? So the goal of business is to solve problems. And here we have a bunch of systems and models of thinking like a platform to solve a problem. So the idea of a brokerage is basically you are acting like a platform. And what does that mean? Meaning you're able to create a platform that creates value so people want to plug and play. That's a great book I would highly recommend to anyone who wants to talk about leadership and want to build a brokerage. Go read this book called Platform Revolution. Now, it's got nothing to do with real estate. It's educating people that the future of business is moving away from pipeline driven to platform driven. So if you run a sales team, a sales business, that's a pipeline business. Now, think about it this way. If you have a platform now that all the pipelines wants to reverse and park inside your platform to run your business, that's a very powerful business. So great book, Platform Revolution. So you're going to think like a platform owner, not at a real estate agent anymore. Now, you can understand how the real estate agent feels and thinks and believes in, but you're going to behave like a platform owner or platform business owner by thinking, how can I create a platform? And I think in real estate, there are only three things as a platform for a broker, and I can just give that formula to you. Number one is systems and models. Do you have a system and model people can follow and scale? And it has to be simple and clear, right? Number two, do you have the technology today to kind of to bring everyone together with that education system to help them understand the system and model? So technology and education goes hand in hand. And the last one is the culture. What's the culture like? Meaning, what kind of people do you want in this organization? And how can you define those culture where, how are we going to treat each other, right? How do you define that? So if you have these three key things, I think that's what's relevant for running a brokerage today, right? Sounds simple, but not easy.
Right.
But the problem is we get too complex, right? You think too much. Like, let's all become Ryan Serhant. That's highly complex. If you ask me, that's a highly complex pathway. It's a highly, let's all be sunset. Let's all be selling sunset, right? It's very different. It's very complex. but simplicity is important. I think that's where you have to get that clarity, right? What would that value of running a brokerage in your market look like? And I don't think you can run away from all these three things that I just talk about. But how does that look like in your market? Then you have to start defining that. That creates that value. And I think the challenge is this: is that value is dynamic. Like creating value is a dynamic thing, because what's valuable today would change tomorrow, right? So there will be not one model that will last forever. And you got to understand that, right? You got to understand that. So as business owners and platform owners, we got to understand there's not one model that will last forever. Once we don't get that and we try to stay where we are, that's where we don't progress, right? Because we think that we just found the ultimate formula that will make us the number one person in that market. But that's not going to be, that's not true, because someone else is going to come in and disrupt, right? And the disruption is it's a natural thing. It's not an unnatural thing. In all our lives, disruption happens through technology advancement, people advancement, or someone just woke up and thought of something new, right? And then that disrupted us from our market share. So I think those are the things that I think someone who wants to build a brokerage or want to think about leadership in this industry should be really thinking in that way, right? Your conversations are totally different.
Absolutely. That's a great way to put it, right? And I love you keep going back to the same term, the same word, platforms, right? Because that's it's a completely new way of looking at things, and just kind of wrapping up the theme of kind of our conversation today. A lot of agents think in terms of pipelines. If you really want to make a disruption, if you really want to go out there and build sustainable business that will last, you have to think in terms of platforms, and not
Right,
a platform that will never change, not a stagnant
right,
platform, a platform that is
right,
built simply,
right,
right? Don't overcomplicate it, because the more, I
right,
mean, the more complicated something is, the harder it is to change, the harder it is to adapt and to innovate and to create dynamic value. So the simpler it
right.
is, the easier it is to actually change your value and to continue and move forward with the disruptors as well. So I think that's very important. And I just want to say, Jonathan, man, I appreciate you for being on the show today. I appreciate you sharing a little bit of your time in between your
No
traveling
worries.
schedule,
No worries. No worries.
other
Happy
podcast
to do.
recordings as well.
Happy
And
to do this anytime.
awesome, man. And I really enjoyed our conversation today. And I do think you shared a ton of value as well. So for anybody out there who wants to maybe connect with you, maybe get you on their show as well, or just want to learn a little bit more about what it is that you can do for their business, what are some of the
Right.
best ways for people to reach out directly to you and connect with you?
You can reach out to my email. I think Kobe, you could share my email on the link. My email is good. My LinkedIn profile as well. And if you get my Facebook profile, you can just click on my Facebook profile and add me. I'm a very friendly person. I like to connect people because I know that I could learn something from you. Like my goal is to learn something from anyone I talk to, and that's how I understand the market better. Right. So please connect if you want to connect with me. Any part of the world, I'm open to have conversations. So if Kobe, you could share my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook profile, and my email address on the description of this particular podcast, I will be happy.
Yep, absolutely. We'll make sure to leave the links to your Facebook, LinkedIn, and your email in the description in the show notes of this podcast right below this episode as well. So that way you guys can connect with Jonathan directly. But other than that,
Right.
man, appreciate you being on the show. Before we let you go, is there any last pieces of advice, just last nuggets you want to leave with the audience?
Right. The real estate business is a very simple business. It's a business of generating leads and helping those leads to acquire whatever they want in the real estate market. So if you have not learned anything today, ask yourself, where's your lead generation in terms of leads? It's all about leads, and it's all about bringing that leads and having that relationship with those leads that you have. If you understand how to do that very well, you have a successful business. And I wish you all the best.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next show. Take care.
Thank you.